Okay, let's see if this fixes anything.
Yo, Nebosuke.
Why is it in Japanese? What the fuck? I don't know what's happening right now. Hi, honey.
Hello.
I don't understand.
Oh,
それ
気にすんな。ユ
ユーナと同じ船なんだろ。
10年前、
な、
その時から素質があること。そして今日、
初めからそんな荷物。あ、私。
ユーナの
そっか。
じゃあ。
I don't know what's going on. I need to do something real quick. Okay, let me do something real quick, see how this is working, and I can't. Oh, that's right. Okay, that's good. But again, how do I... Okay, let's see how that works. See another thing I fucked up. let's see if that works now. It'll look back in English.
Here comes one now.
Thank you.
Hey, why don't you try out that sword I gave you? No! Not too shabby. You might make a good... A flyer!
So 1, 2, 3, 4 more.
That... Told ya. If you can't beat them down, man, let's have our black loot.
Clueless, aren't you? Spells of ice and ice fiends you fought.
I get fire and ice.
Lightning and water are. This one here is. Take your.
Let's get.
We're gonna wait. Alright.
What?
It's an ancient custom. People leaving the island pray here for a... Chapu didn't pray that day. That should do it. That's enough.
Kimari Ronso.
He's another...
Sometimes
we don't understand him either. Kamari doesn't talk much anyway. But
All right. So she's not in the party yet. Is she? She's in the party.
A flyer.
True, true. Why don't we let our summoner show it? Your first real battle.
show us what your training has taught you, Yuna. Okay.
Hi, boom. I need to hit it back because I forgot Valafor's overdrive. I talked to the girl in the item shop first before the dog drops it. There you go.
Another one. No problem. Leave this one. Say good night.
to everybody and anybody who is watching. Hope you guys having a great Friday. I don't know what day it was.
Boo.
And give. Boobs. Ah, time to get the third outbound timer. Move down here.
Ooh, that was fun. Yeah.
I don't care about you, Waka.
Don't look. I've no business. Who do you think? Awaka the 23rd. Awaka. Don't know.
What the heck is that?
What the heck is what?
What is this place?
The power room, like it says on the door?
Yeah, but why the big birds?
What's so strange about chocobo power?
Chocobos? Those are chocobos?
What? You've never seen a chocobo? What kind of backwater island did you come from, anyway?
Miracles and oddities were starting to become daily routine on this trip.
Boom. Third primer.
Word is that summoner's got noble blood.
I heard she's Lord Braska's daughter. You don't say.
Lord Braska's daughter? So, is Yuna's father famous or something?
She's the daughter of High Summoner Braska. You saw his statue at the temple. Lord Braska defeated Sin 10 years ago. Yuna's the heir to a great legacy.
It's tough when your father's famous.
Huh?
Waka's a bit lacking in the imagination department.
Huh?
Thanks, Lulu. I'll keep that in mind.
Alright, time to grind. I'm gonna get as many levels as I possibly can. So if you guys are ready for a long grind session against Sinfin, share it up, like it up, give me the biddies. The more bits, the longer I go. I don't know, I don't have a way to make sets right now to actually make a subathon. But if you guys donate bits, or if you guys donate gifts in TikTok, I will prolong the stream by 10
The wind.
minutes.
It's nice.
anybody just now coming in on either side,
You're a blitzball
I
player,
just
aren't
said
you?
everybody that I'm
From
going to be
Xanarkin, right?
postponing the
You
stream as long as
hear
I
that from
can for any
Waka?
gifts or bits I get either on
Huh.
TikTok or the YouTube side.
Waka doesn't
Sorry,
believe
super
me at
chats
all.
on YouTube. I forgot you're doing YouTube. Gifts or anything from YouTube side. If you guys want to,
But
you guys
I
can help
believe
me out, and I'll postpone the
I've heard in
the Sin
Xanarkin,
Fin fight for as long as I
there
can.
is a great stadium, all lit up, even at night.
Huh?
Great blitzball tournaments are held there, and the stands are always full.
How do you know that?
A man named Jack told me. He was my father's guardian.
Checked. My father. His name is Jecht.
Amazing! You know, our meeting like this must be the blessing of Yevon.
Sounds like him, but it can't be him.
Why not?
My old man, he died. 10 years ago, off the coast of Xanarkin.
I'm sorry.
He went out to sea for training one day, and never came back. And no one's seen him since then.
Why, that's the day that Jecht came to Spira.
But,
It's true, I first met Jecht 10 years and 3 months ago. I remember that was the day my father left.
What timing?
The date fits, doesn't it?
yeah, but how would he get here?
You're here? Are you not?
Sin Fin!
What do you think you're doing? Stick a harpoon in him and we'll all get dragged under.
Zin is going for Kilika. We gotta distract it. Our families are in Kilika. Forgive us, Lady Summoner.
Wait! Oh boy!
Yeehaw! Whack in there. Cheer up. I have some Mari. Mari attack one. Titus here again. As soon as Mari Titus. Swap Yuna for Lulu, so that way she gets experience. Thunder resistance skill. Doesn't fucking use spine. Then Mari to lance it does that. Then special shear Mari and Titus again. A little bit set up for this.
The fin. That.
Everybody is now one-shotting. So, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the likes as well. Alright. Okay. It's now set up for me to not do anything. Watch this. Times 4. Auto battle. Battle disabled. Can't use auto battle? Oh, well, damn. Alright. Okay. All I'm gonna do is attack. And sometimes heal. And we're gonna do this for as long as I want. I also need to get Titus's thing, so I will kind of pay attention. This is the best way to grind in Final Fantasy X in the early game if you guys want to get us in the early levels. Especially if you're playing extra good like I am. And I'm going to do this fight for as long as possible, so if you guys are liking it, you want to hang out for the rest of it, see how much experience I get, go ahead and share it up, like it up, send some gifts, because the more gifts I get, the longer I stay. Yes, it is. Exactly what I'm doing. Hey, boop! So I actually did, last time I streamed this game, my first actual full playthrough of the game, I streamed this fight for 4 hours. Thank you.
Got it memorized?
Crypto, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. It's also the best way to get Titus's overdrives, because since they keep coming and I have Slayer already, I can automatically get swordplay or the overdrives up way faster.
Came out.
If you guys know any other games that have a decent, easy way to set up for easy farming, I am more than welcome to see if I can get it and play it and see how the games work, because this is fun to me, honestly.
It is fun. I need to buy this again.
It's like $30 now on Steam. Now on the Steam version, you can have Supercharge on, more.
$9.99 on PlayStation
That's
Store.
even cheaper. Hey-ah. Yo, Sam! So I'm playing on the Steam version, which gives you a 4 times multiplier on the speed if you want it. It's one of the additions. So it's Ty's turn. We do slice and dice, but it's not really fucking matter. I just want things. Ugh. Slice and dice again. Interesting. Not spiral cuts. Exactly. I'm playing on the Steam version, so I have it on 4 times speed. Yeah, you guys grind it a little more afterwards. Lucky that you watched. I am grinding. I am just grinding. Every single skill I defeat gives me experience. Every overkill that also gives me more experience. I'm also giving Titus chances to get his overdrive. So that means I am done. That's not gonna do hit that 80 times. apologize about that. Ugh. There you go. Hi. Kaboom. Alright everybody, I am streaming, as you can see, on both TikTok and YouTube. I am doing the Simfin fight at 4 times speed, seeing how long I can go to get some experience. If you want to follow along, come and join me. I still should be up by the time you guys see this. Let's go, guys. this the devil's number? Huh? One second, guys. Well done. Interesting. There we go. Cool. Okay. All right. 549 is like the lowest I could roll on that one. I'm always having a good time. I'm going to put on something to listen to. So give me a second while I find something. My brain's going crazy.
It to say, for our sort of multiversal mapping purposes, every individual universe has a varying number of different layers of existence within it, which we will refer to as parallel dimensions. Now let's zoom out even further and get to multiverse stuff. At this point, I should remind everybody that each individual universe within the Marvel Multiverse has a number. The main universe in which almost everything goes on is referred to as Earth 616, and as we zoom out of Earth 616, before we get to other universes, we're going to reach a middle state called the superflow. The superflow is the connecting quote-unquote space between multiverses. Obviously, that does not work in a literal physical spatial sense. This is all very weird esoteric stuff, and there's not a lot of natural matter there, but there is a lot of energy, especially of the psionic variety. The canon of this is a little bit shaky, but it has been stated before that the superflow is where dreams come from, and also that it is an origin for telepathy. I guess when telepaths are reaching out to other minds, they are doing so through the superflow somehow. If you manage to directly enter the superflow somehow, you will find the occasional structure there. There is matter there. The keyword to what I said a minute ago was that there is not a lot of natural matter. Certain extremely advanced groups, especially the alien race known as the Builders, have built what are basically space stations within the superflow nearby specific universes. This is also the area that the first Firmament and his minions were chilling as they were waiting to destroy all of reality. The superflow is very cool as a concept, but we're not going to spend a lot of time here on our journey either, mostly because there's not much here to talk about. So we zoom out just a little bit further, and we finally reach the multiverse as it is typically understood. The first thing that you're going to see here is alternate universes. And honestly, at this point, if you've gotten an hour and 20 minutes almost into this video, I really hope I don't have to explain the general idea of what an alternate universe is to you. The important thing to note when we're talking about the multiverse of Marvel Comics is that not all of these alternate universes are direct branches of a singular timeline. That's the way the MCU has tried to characterize it, and it kind of makes sense for what they're doing, but the comics have never stuck too strictly to that. Some of them are timeline branches, but a lot of them just exist without a solid explanation as to why they exist. And honestly, I prefer this. Counterintuitive to the whole point of this video, I do think that the multiverse is an idea that should not be over-explained. It's better when it's just comic book nonsense, there's a multiverse, and not every universe has to have an in-depth history. Now, we're not nearly done zooming out. There's a lot more quote-unquote higher levels that we need to hit here, but we can't leave the multiverse just yet because I do have to explain the concept of multiversal dimensions that I mentioned earlier. Some realities within the multiverse do not have variants of themselves. They are one existence, and there's nothing else out there that's exactly like they are. This is what I call a multiversal dimension, though I should be very clear, that is my term for it. I don't believe there's an official name for this. A good example of this would be Mojo World, home of the X-Men villain Mojo, which exists in a singular dimension known as the Mojoverse. As you can tell, there's a theme with their naming. There is only one Mojo and only one Mojo World. If the X-Men are going there, they are leaving their universe and going to this different one. And if the X-Men of a different reality were to go to the Mojoverse, they would end up in the same one, not their own version of it. Some of these dimensions exist in a unique space within the structure of the multiverse, leading to them having the title Nexus of All Realities. One of the easiest examples of this is the dimension known as Otherworld. Just with the way that Otherworld is positioned in relation to everywhere else, the cosmic energies of the multiverse, probably through the superflow, happen to concentrate in this area, allowing Otherworld to be a focal point by which one person can travel to any other area. Nexi don't have to be entire dimensions either. There can be nexi within individual realities. The Everglades is one in the main Marvel universe. They can also be housed within items like the Macron crystal, which pretty much works like a nexus, and also they can be individual beings. The best example of this is the Scarlet Witch, who draws a lot of her power from the fact that she is a Nexus being. In fact, the Queen of Nevers uses Nexus beings as her agents. They are the ones who enact possibility throughout the multiverse. With all of this established, let's zoom out a little bit more, not enough to take us into the next zone, but enough that we can kind of recap what we've seen so far. Looking down, we see a vast network of alternate universes and singular multiversal dimensions, held together by a structure known as the superflow, consisting of cosmic energy which converges at various types of nexus points. This is the multiverse. This is also eternity. What we are looking at right now is what the cosmic entity known as eternity embodies. In fact, actually, hang on, let me zoom out like a couple clicks more here and oh, hello, it is eternity. This is eternity in a literal sense. By zooming out just a tiny little bit, we have entered another layer known as the overspace. As you might be able to guess, this is the opposite of the underspace, and it is somewhere that you can access by getting really, really big. This is not a place that gets accessed very often, but essentially, if you get big enough, then you are the size of the universe. And in this weird pseudo-religious cosmological sense, the universe is a guy, so if you're the same size as the guy, then you can talk to the guy. Once we have reached this level, we have officially exited the multiverse. Look, there he is right over there. And when we hit this level, it gets a little bit hard to tell exactly where things are in relation to each other, because we're outside of space, and so terms like in relation don't have any meaning. This is where things get really cool though. Once we've exited the multiverse, all of the rules of logic that we've been using can be thrown out and things can be wild with no restrictions. However, before we get to these really wild realms, I do have to address an elephant in the room, the MCU. I have referenced it briefly a few times and now I'm actually gonna talk about it. As of now, when I am recording this video, the Marvel movies and the Marvel comics do not share any lore or canon connection. Of course, as of now in that sentence is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Maybe that will change in the future when the Secret Wars movie or something comes out. But when I'm recording this, they are unconnected entirely. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is an adaptation of the Marvel comics. Just like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or any other book that's made its way to screen, the two are not connected, it's just retellings of the same stories. I have seen this debate spiral into fights before, so I'm going to give some solid canon information on it, and then we'll get back to multiverse structure very soon, I promise, but I do think this is worth talking about. Many years ago, Marvel published a singular guidebook which made an offhand reference to the MCU as Earth 199999. This book came out in 2008, long before the Marvel Cinematic Universe started doing anything multiverse related. Back then, it was canon to the Marvel multiverse, but in a way that didn't really affect anything. The comics and the movies were totally separate, but eventually, the movies started doing multiverse things too. At this point, the movies decided that they didn't want to be tied to the comics anymore and wanted to be able to do multiverse things more freely, so they started being treated like an adaptation. It was a retcon. Yes, it was a retcon, but retcons happen in comics all the time, and honestly, this was a pretty safe one because the comics and the movies hadn't affected each other. It really just removed one offhand Easter egg from a guidebook from 2008, and little else. But then, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness referred to the MCU main universe as number 616, and people started losing their minds about it. Here's the thing though, the movie multiverse and the comics multiverse are like really obviously unconnected, because both the comics and the movies have had multiverse-spanning events that don't affect the other one. Plus, the cosmology of them has been described in entirely different ways on multiple occasions. Try to reconcile the canon I've been giving you in this video with the canon of the Loki show. You can't do it. They are incompatible with one another because they are different. If you want more solid proof than that, the MCU version of America Chavez has been confirmed as a singular entity within the multiverse. So she can't be in the same multiverse as the comics one because then there would be two of them. There's a lot of little things like this that make the lack of connection pretty clear, but I've already gone on this tangent for way too long, so we're going to get back to the main topic. For now, though, as we move outside of the comics multiverse, just understand that the movie multiverse and the comics multiverse are unconnected as of now. Trust me on that. Okay, I am adding another section to this real quickly. For me right now, it is literally hours before this video goes out, but I decided that I did need to briefly address the currently running TVA comic. This comic is causing a lot of confusion right now because it really looks like it is set inside the MCU version of the TVA. Characters original to the Loki show are appearing in it, it has the MCU TVA aesthetics, which we'd never seen before, and it explicitly references MCU events. If that was the end of it, it would not be that tough. It could just be an MCU tie-in comic not connected to the rest of the comics, but no, it is also directly connected to the main comic book multiverse, and no explanation has been provided for this, leaving fans guessing. Now, Marvel has said there will be more answers to this within the issues that have not yet released, but thank goodness, there is actually a definitive answer to its canon status right now that I can cite, so I don't have to leave this on a weird question mark. After a miscommunication about a cliffhanger at the end of issue 3 caused a ton of fan speculation, the artist of the comic went onto Instagram and officially stated MCU and Marvel Comics are not the same thing. This is something that he was communicated by editorial, so this is official word from Marvel as of 2 days ago. Now, once again, I do have to put the little as of now asterisk on there because we don't know exactly what is going on in the TVA comic yet, and I'm not going to delay this video by a couple of months to find out. A lot of people are thinking that this is the comics just officially confirming that the comics multiverse has one universe or a small cluster of universes that resembles the MCU, but is not technically the same. Or if we want to get even weirder with it, this entire TVA could be a trick or illusion of some kind. There is some stuff in issue 3 that sort of hints to that. Or the status quo might change, I don't know. But again, all that I can do for purposes of these type of videos is go by the most recent canon. And right now, it has been officially stated by Marvel that the MCU and the comics are not the same thing. And it can't really get much more explicit than that, so there you go. So now we can get back to the actual topic. Hooray! The reason that I did all that was, like I said before I went on this tangent, things are about to get really weird. And they're not going to be weird in a way that is consistent with any other media. This is stuff that is unique to Marvel's cosmology, which is what makes it so fun. At this stage, we're actually going to zoom in a tiny bit before we zoom out because I skipped ahead a little bit going to overspace, mostly because I wanted to do the waving hello to eternity bit. Before you get to these outside realms of the multiverse, you enter an area called the neutral zone or exospace. Exospace is essentially the boundary zone between the multiverse and the areas outside of it. It is described as a realm where both matter and antimatter can coexist, so as you'd expect, physics is very weird here. There's not a lot in exospace. A few mortals have been trapped here before, but talking about things that you can find naturally, there's a bunch of weird eldritch entities and a lot of this crystalline structure, which actually has a weirdly important role in Marvel video games. If you play a lot of Marvel mobile games especially, you might be familiar with the material known as ISO 8, which is a common upgrade material for characters. In the comics continuity, this is where it comes from. Moving past exospace, we are now outside of the multiverse and therefore outside of any reasonable physics. Take all your science and objective reasoning and throw them out the window. We're not going to need them for a while. There are 8 realms that we're going to cover here. Canonically, there are more, but only 8 that we've ever seen. Most of these are going to be pretty fast, though, and in fact, one of them, Overspace, we already talked about. Importantly, even though this is kind of the map of the multiverse section, I cannot give you a solid map of these areas, because space as a concept does not matter at this stage. What matters more when you're talking about extra multiversal realms is actually the purpose that you have for leaving the multiverse. This is where we get to see the idea of Marvel's cosmology being powered by narrative and story really applied in a practical sense. Whatever your storyline needs the realms outside the multiverse to be is going to determine where you end up. Sometimes, though, your story needs the area outside of the multiverse to be nothing, and so that cosmic void is what we will talk about first in this section, commonly known as the Far Shore. The Far Shore is nothingness. It's just big ol' infinite, empty cosmic space. There is nothing here naturally. Sometimes storylines happen here, but that's because people get exiled to the Far Shore from inside the multiverse most of the time. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. The Far Shore is cool, but the explanation of how it works would just be sometimes people get stuck here, so we're going to move on. Though the area we are moving on to is actually one that we've talked about before. It is called Beyond, and as you can probably guess, this is where the Beyonders live. What we call Beyond is actually several scattered pocket dimensions which are the remains of the second cosmos. These are the extra multiversal areas that the Beyonders use as their base of operations to observe the goings-on within the multiverse. We very rarely see the inside of Beyond, so I can't tell you too much about it, with one important exception, that being the realm known as the Library of Worlds. If I could go anywhere in the Marvel Multiverse, I would go here and stay here forever, probably. The Library of Worlds is a vast, potentially infinite library that contains, presumably, all knowledge of everything. The Beyonders created the library long ago as a sort of gift to the inhabitants of the multiverse, but would later abandon it, and now it is primarily accessed by powerful magic users and scientists, both as a source of knowledge and a meeting place. I think the library is a fascinating setting, and I really hope Marvel does more with it. As of now, it's only been seen in 2 arcs, that being 2015 Secret Wars and the lead up to it, and, say it with me, gods! I could go on an entire rant about gods again, but I will spare you all because we have other places to visit, the next one being the Well Beyond the Worlds. The Well Beyond the Worlds has only appeared in one comic ever, that being Resurrection of Magneto from 2024. Actually, most of the next couple realms are only from Resurrection of Magneto. It did a weird amount for the Cosmic Sphere. Since the Well has only appeared in this one book, there's not a lot of concrete information about it, but there is enough to go off of. It is described as being related to the very core of magic itself, which seems to mean that it is the origin of magic in some way or another. It also seems to function as an afterlife of sorts, but specifically for those who are also heavily connected to magic as a concept. Now, we're gonna branch into headcanon territory for the next part of this, but I have a theory about the Well Beyond the Worlds that I really, really like, so I'm just gonna go ahead and present that to you for your consideration. We know that pieces of previous cosmos can still exist outside the multiverse. This is what Beyond is, for example. We also know that the 5th cosmos was where magic originated, so I wonder if the Well Beyond the Worlds is a pocket reality that is the remnants of the 5th cosmos. It is literally referred to as the garden where magic grows, after all, so in my mind it makes total sense that this is the original prime 5th cosmos source, which is now providing magic to all the cosmos going forward. But again, headcanon, that is not official information at all. Also though, come on, it would be cool, right? I'm really putting my lore historian brain to work here. From the Well Beyond the Worlds, we can move into the Sphere of Judgment, which is actually a couple different metaphysical planes that I will classify together. The Sphere of Judgment is basically like Super Hell, though it is also described as a realm of purification, and the reason I'm going to classify it with a few others is that this really gets into the concept of afterlives, like capital A afterlives. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it would kind of move from cosmology of Marvel into religion of Marvel, a topic that I will probably never cover in detail because it would be too controversial. But to summarize really quickly, pretty much all religions in the Marvel Universe are true to some extent because Marvel has never settled on one, which makes a lot of sense. But this also means that fictional quote-unquote religions can also be true, and that's what these areas deal with. The mutants have one of these, especially important during the Krakoa era. It revolves around these extra multiversal afterlife spaces, and this is what the Resurrection of Magneto series is all about. Magneto dies, he ends up here, and then Storm goes and gets him. These afterlife realms are for the most part self-contained to that Krakoan religion though, with one exception, that being the White Hot Room. This one is very important. The White Hot Room is the home of the Phoenix Force. Remember, the Phoenix Force is a singular entity across the multiverse, so it does make sense that it would be based outside of the multiverse. It is a realm of pure light and life, and therefore it is very, very trippy. Originally, it also functioned as an afterlife, but specifically to those people who were hosts of the Phoenix Force at one point in their lives. In the current canon, it is way more than that though, because it's also, to my knowledge, where Krakoa is now. I'm going to explain this very quickly, but I'm going to preface this by saying there's no way this is going to make sense in total context because of how complex Krakoa was, so I'm just going to say some things, and you have to take that they are true. At the end of the Krakoa era, like literally the final issues of it, the White Hot Room becomes an imminently important thing, and the Phoenix Force connects to every mutant ever, and this leads to Krakoa itself ascending to the White Hot Room, like leaving Earth and becoming a specific mutant afterlife. Which I know is an absolutely wild thing to just drop in the middle of a largely unrelated video, but yeah, that's what happened to Krakoa. It left the multiverse and is just chilling out there now. It still exists, but not in the same way at all. Back to the White Hot Room at large, there is an opposite of it called the Dark Cold Room. Yeah, I mean, that is what I guess you would call the opposite of it. Predictably, the dark cold room is where the opposite of the Phoenix Force lives. The problem with that is that there are many things which have been described as the opposite of the Phoenix Force over the years, and the dark cold room solves that problem by just putting them all in here and saying, yeah, I guess they're different manifestations and aspects of the same force. So here's that, and now we don't have to deal with it anymore. So yeah, answering a sidebar question, if you're curious what the opposite of the Phoenix Force is, it is all of these things at once, which are different but also the same. Does that make sense? No? Well, whatever, I don't care, this is the answer you have. Moving on past these afterlife type realms, we get to the final two realms in our multiversal journey, one of which we have also briefly talked about, that being the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be. If you recall Act -2 of this video, this is the home of the Queen of Nevers, the cosmic embodiment of possibility. As such, it's hard to describe on purpose. It is typically referred to as an empty void, but like not in the exact same way that the far shore is. It's not empty because it's just infinite space. It's empty because it is raw possibility that has not been realized. It could be anything, but it's not yet, so currently it's nothing. That felt really weird to say, but as philosophical and trippy as it sounds, it is the best description that I can think of. I really don't know what else to say about the land of couldn't be, shouldn't be, because it by definition defies solid description. It could be anything, but it's also not anything, but therefore anything that I tell you it could possibly be is also accurate to what it is, or what it at least could be at some point in the possible future. This is some Alice in Wonderland nonsense, and I really like it, but I gotta move on before I break my brain and yours. Moving on from that, well, how do we move on from that? How do we go higher on a cosmological scale past a realm of infinite nothingness that could be a realm of infinite anything? Where else is there to go? Well, there is an answer to that, and it's an answer that everything in this video has been building to. Welcome to the extra secret bonus act of this. We've done Act 1, 2, -2, and 3. Where else to go but Act Infinity, the House of Ideas. Why do I separate this into its own act? Well, I think you'll see as we go that that's the only way to do it. Before we talk about what the House of Ideas is, we have to talk about one more entity. An entity that I've mentioned a few times in this video, but always just said we've talked about later. Later has finally arrived. Let's talk about the one above all. The one above all is the pinnacle of the Marvel multiverse. You cannot go higher in scale than this entity. And the reason that you can't go higher above this thing is that it isn't even technically part of the Marvel multiverse, at least not entirely. The one above all is the creative energy that makes the Marvel multiverse work. It is us in the real world as the creators and perceivers of this work. The one above all is the amalgamation of everyone in our world that makes Marvel Marvel. It is the writers, it is the artists, it is the editors, it is the lore keepers, it is the readers and fans. You watching this video right now, you are technically a tiny piece of the one above all, in a literal sense. We are deep into metafiction territory now, and we're going to go even deeper when I show you more pictures of this thing. The one above all is most commonly represented as a being of golden light, but it has taken human form before, and typically when it takes human form, it looks like Jack Kirby. Where do we see cosmic metafiction god take human form? Well, that is within the realm known as the House of Ideas. The House of Ideas kind of just looks like a normal house a lot of the time, and it's where the writing gets done. This place is very rarely seen, but my favorite example of this is when the Fantastic Four managed to explore all the way to the House of Ideas, and when they went inside, there was the one above all, sitting at his desk, drawing a comic book. To say that the one above all is all-powerful is understating it, not because it's just that strong, but because power doesn't even really apply in this sense. I occasionally see people trying to power scale the one above all. Let me give you a thought experiment here. Imagine a character in your head. Any character. Can be one you make up, can be somebody else's character, anything. Now bonk them on the head in your mind with a little hammer. You see how that character can't stop you from imagining that if you really want to? That's what we're talking about with the one above all here. It's not something that you can scale with fictional characters because it's not fictional. It's a writer. The one above all is the direct hand of the creators interfering in their own creation. In the strictest sense of the word, it's not even really a character because it is not subject to the whims of the story like all the others are. But occasionally it is. There are exceptions to this, so let's talk about those. To do this, we need to understand the entity known as the One Below All, most explored in the fantastic series Immortal Hulk. The One Below All is originally presented as a dark mirror to the One Above All. If the One Above All is goodness and creation, then the One Below All is evil and destruction. But it's actually not that simple. As this series goes on, it is revealed that the One Below All is not an opposite parallel entity to the One Above All. It is actually the same being representing itself in a different way, which has fascinating psychological and philosophical implications. See, the One Above All is typically represented as good. It is a creator force. It is what caused everything in the Marvel Universe. But thinking about it, a lot of bad stuff happens in the Marvel Universe too. Let's take a classic, the death of Uncle Ben. The one good? This is the purpose of the One Below All. It is not its own being, it is the dark side of the creator. It is the acknowledgement that to make a story happen, bad things often need to be done to the characters within it. This is not strictly good, but for the purposes of storytelling and narrative, it is a necessity, and this dark necessity is what the One Below All represents. Of course, in stories like this, good typically wins, and therefore the One Below All is, in a sense, lesser than the One Above All. It is a being that ultimately exists to be defeated. It is weaker than creation because creation is always going to win out against destruction. If destruction wins in the end, there's no more stories to be told, and that's not going to happen. Now, even though the One Above All and the One Below All combined represent the sum total of all creation, there are exceptions to that as well, and cases in which things can arise without their influence. We've really only seen this happen once, but it's a very interesting case. This would be the Mother of Horrors, a new character to the Marvel canon who we have not yet literally seen, only heard mention of, and seen the children of. The Mother of Horrors is stated to have come into existence without the One Above All's influence. It made itself exist in some way, and this made the One Above All very angry. This is not to say that the Mother of Horrors is more powerful than the One Above All. In fact, the One Below All was able to chain it fairly easily. What I see the Mother of Horrors representing is more like the unintended consequences or interpretations of creation. The arc that we've seen the Mother of Horrors go through in her very brief existence was that she manifested, the One Above All was aware of this and became very angry, it appeared as the One Below All and chained it but did not destroy it. Much like a piece of creative work can be interpreted in ways that the creator does not like. They can try their best to suppress that, but ultimately that's not going to be something that they have full control over because people can form their own opinions. So you can try to chain the Mother of Horrors, but you cannot get rid of it completely. Now, let's address some of the contrarians in the room with regards to the One Above All. I know what the comic book audience looks like, and I'm about to read some of you so hard. Let's return to that thought experiment from a couple minutes ago where I told you to imagine a character and then bonk them on the head with a little imaginary hammer. I am absolutely certain that some of you didn't do exactly that. A few of you imagined the character dodging or catching the hammer or something else which prevented them from being hit by your strike. Now, you might think that I'm going to yell at you and say you got it wrong, but no. You actually understand this a lot more. The One Above All is an ultimate creator, yes, but ask any writer or artist and they will tell you that the things that they create can surprise them sometimes. Creation can become bigger than its creator, and that is often what the One Above All is all about. The One Above All is not some singular creator deity imposing its divine will on everything that it makes. It is a creator who is curious, who is fascinated by the things that it can make. It is intrigued by the mystery. Is the One Above All the ultimate undeniable peak of power within the Marvel Universe? Yes, no matter what storylines happen within the comics, it is the writers and the artists and the fans, like I said, and until Doctor Doom rolls up to our universe and holds the entire Marvel editorial department hostage, nothing's going to change that. But if you stop there, then you're asking these questions for the wrong reasons. The One Above All does not exist to define things or control things. It exists to explore things, to be curious, to ask in true Marvel fashion the question, what if? That simple little question is the key to everything in this nearly 2-hour video. Every piece of Marvel exists because a part of the One Above All asked, what if? The multiverse exists because somebody asked, what if things played out differently? Eternity exists because somebody asked, what if the multiverse was a dude? Overspace exists because somebody asked, what if a guy got big enough to talk to that dude? And so on and so forth. Everything comes down to those two simple words. Some of these answers that I've presented to you over the course of this video are going to change. Hell, a couple of them changed while I was in the middle of recording. But that's the beauty of all this, and that is one of the best things about Western comic books as a genre. They keep going, and people keep asking what if, and every time somebody does that, things change and grow and evolve, and there's always new stories to be told. Over this video, I have talked about so many things. The history of the multiverse, the entities, the structure of it from the microverse on up. It just got weirder and weirder and weirder. And the end point of all that weirdness was us. It was you, it was me, it was the writers, it was us as people. We created that weirdness, and I think that's kind of beautiful. No matter how awful the world around us might be, and believe me, it gets awful at times, humanity has always, throughout our entire history back to the Mesopotamians, been able to imagine weirdness. And as we create these things, this creation becomes a part of us. The Marvel Universe is built on this fundamentally. Narrative is woven into the literal fabric of reality, and I would argue that in a way, that's true in the real world too. Storytelling is one of the most important things that humanity has, and it's never going to stop in spite of everything. Storytelling moves ever onwards, ever upwards. In the words of the great Stan Lee, Excelsior. Thank you all so much for watching. Things along with it. His father had disowned him. The symbiotes. One of the most iconic alien species in Marvel, if not the superhero comic space as a whole. Most of us are generally familiar with how these things work. They are weird blobs of alien goo that bond with people and give them a bunch of superpowers, but also, have a tendency to take over their hosts and sometimes eat people's brains. But is that really all they are? Are the symbiotes merely normal aliens, or is there a deeper level of arcane complexity to their lore? The second one. I'm gonna go ahead and answer my own question. It is the second one. My God, are they complex now? In the last 10 years especially, Marvel has evolved an insane amount on the lore of Venom and his species, adding concepts like Null, the god of symbiotes, as well as a bunch of time travel and human symbiote hybrids and many other things that are admittedly a little hard to keep track of at times. If you have been wanting a catch-up video on the symbiotes and how they work in general, this is the video for you. Are we going to be covering literally everything about the symbiotes? God no, because that's like 45 years and I only have a couple of hours to do this. But I will give you the things that you need to know so that you'll have a rough understanding of how they work for the canon going forward, which is still going to be quite a lot. But hey, you people on this channel have proven that you are more than willing to stick around for long videos, so let's do it. Now, before we get into the very large amount of lore we're going to be covering, I have to address the order in which I'm going to present it, because when it comes to the symbiotes, I had two options. Option one was to present this kind of like an in-universe history book, start way back in the past at the origin of symbiotes as a species, and move forward from there to the present day. Option 2 was to do this by real publication history, meaning we would begin at the Black Suit Spider-Man arc in the 1980s and go over the lore as it was revealed to the readers. Both of these orders had pros and cons to them, and I felt pretty confident that I could present the video with either structure, meaning I was kind of torn on which to do, and ultimately decided to just do the lazy option. Sorry, I decided to do community engagement with you guys, and so I put it up to a YouTube poll. Over 7,000 people voted 63% in favor of the in-universe timeline, so that's what we're going to be going with. Don't worry, I will make interesting notes about publication as we get to them, and if you're mad about how this turned out, I don't know, argue with democracy. Though there is one kind of interesting quirk about doing the history of the symbiotes by in-universe chronology, which is that we are actually not going to start with symbiotes at all. So that's how you know we're in for some good comic book nonsense today. Our story begins at the beginning of existence itself, like damn near the first point in any Marvel timeline, which is probably a lot farther back than many of you thought we were going to go, but you're just going to have to trust me to stick to what's relevant to symbiotes. If you do want more details about this, I did another 2-hour video essay about it a couple months ago, which will have all the details of the early period. Also, I do know that plugging a 2-hour video essay in a 2-hour video essay is kind of insane, but if you're the type of person who got excited about this video, you're probably the type of person to be excited that there's another waiting for you. Anyway, back in the first days of reality, there existed the Celestials. Yes, like the Celestials that you are probably thinking of. They were extremely powerful and spent most of their time just experimenting on existence, which at the time was very simple, but the Celestials were working on developing it. This worked out fine for a time, but eventually the Celestials began disagreeing with each other on how exactly to conduct themselves. So they split into two factions, these two factions fought, and their fight became so big that the universe exploded. This is not an exaggeration at all, and it's also not particularly uncommon in Marvel Comics. The Marvel Multiverse has been destroyed and restructured several times, and that cycle is key to the lore of the symbiotes of all things. We're going to be hitting this very quickly, but again, just trust me to give you stuff that's relevant to the topic today. So reality, or rather the first version of reality, explodes, and the Celestials who did survive it pop out in the second reality. At this point, they decide, maybe we should set up a checks and balances system just to ensure that that doesn't happen again. The system they designed was another type of being, infinite entities known as the Omegas. The Omegas had two purposes. One, kill their masters if another celestial war were to ever begin, but secondly, the more important one for our topic today, preserve the existence of the multiverse from within. See, the Celestials could learn something from Peter Parker because while they are incredibly powerful, they are also notoriously irresponsible. They don't want to deal with the ramifications of the things that they do, they just want to keep doing their weird creation and strange experiments. The Omegas were supposed to make sure that none of that stuff went too off the rails. With this dynamic established, everything is once again fine for a while. The Celestials keep making weird things, and the Omegas make sure that everything is stable. That is, until one of the Celestials comes up with this newfangled concept called death. Introducing death itself to an existence that previously had no such concept whatsoever understandably caused some problems, and as a result of one of those problems, reality exploded again. A new one arose from its ashes, of course, but at this point, the Celestials are 2 for 2 on breaking everything. Fortunately, once more, the Celestials, and in this case, more importantly, the Omegas, do survive the destruction. The Celestials keep on doing their thing, but the Omegas get sent outside of the multiverse. They don't exist in the third one per se, they exist in like a little bubble, essentially the remnants of the second reality that exists. I mean, this is weird time-space cosmological nonsense, there's not really geographical coordinates to it, they just exist beyond. Me choosing that word was not arbitrary in the slightest, as from this point going forward, the Omegas would be known as the Beyonders. Now, I wanted to point out that name specifically so that very dedicated Marvel fans would know who we're talking about, but for most of this video, I will not be calling them the Beyonders. This group has a billion different names, and the one that is most relevant to the symbiotes is the Kings in White. The Kings in White, or the Ivory Kings, yes, I did just introduce a new name for them in 3 consecutive lines, don't blame me for that, blame Marvel, continued their work of preserving the multiverse, but now they were doing so from a very different position. The Kings in White existed beyond. They were not located in the multiverse anymore, and this gave them a lot more oversight as to keeping everything in check. They had a very literal outside perspective. They could look into the multiverse from wherever they existed and make sure that everything was functioning properly. But with the advantages of this position came some limitations. These beings were incredibly powerful, and from beyond, they could make sweeping changes to the multiverse with relative ease. They were great at big picture protection, but they were not as good at the small scale stuff. If something demanded a finer touch or a quick response, the Kings in White couldn't exactly do that. Thus, they proposed adding a third party to their cosmic system. The Celestials would continue acting as unbiased forces of creation, development, and expansion. The Kings in White would maintain the multiverse from the outside, and this new role would maintain the multiverse from within. Since the new edition would serve a somewhat opposite role to the Kings in White, it was dubbed the King in Black. Now, king, as opposed to kings, plural, is very important there. The Kings in White are a singular organization. There are rogue Beyonders, of course, but most of them operate outside of the multiverse from one location. The King in Black, however, is singular. There is only one King in Black, at least one per universe. The concept of how they work on a multiversal scale is very weird, and we're going to come back to that, but not until way later in this video. So for now, just know that there is one King in Black, not a bunch of them. The final thing we need to establish before we can start talking about specific characters is the tools that the Cosmic Kings use to complete their work. The power used by the King in White is a force that has a bunch of names, but for dramatic purposes that will pay off later, I'm going to refer to it here as the Unipower. The Unipower has a lot more lore, which again, later, but for now, just know that it is usually represented by light. Then, as you can probably guess, the King in Black uses a parallel power known as Living Abyss. Living Abyss is represented by darkness, but specifically in the context of like primordial nothingness, the void between realities, and this void is where we finally meet Null. We're going to time skip forward very substantially now. Where we last picked up on the story, we were in the 3rd iteration of reality. Now we are going to zoom all the way to the 7th, or more accurately, kind of the gap space between the 6th and the 7th. Here we see, well, nothing really. There is no reality yet. This is the gap between universes. There is nothing here but a primordial void, and one singular entity. This entity is Null. Now you might be wondering how Null exists when literally nothing else does, and the answer to that is pretty simple. He is a god. He doesn't have to follow the standard rules of logic. As a cosmic embodiment of sorts, he comes into being when the thing that he embodies does. And Null is a god of darkness, which means this primordial void is his pinnacle of power. He's not really evil at this stage yet because there's kind of nothing to be evil against. Null is completely content to just drift endlessly in this sea of nothingness, but the Celestials are about to ruin his night. In the middle of our little time skip, the Celestials have just kind of been doing the same stuff. They do their weird creation, weird experiments, eventually something causes reality to blow up, oopsie doopsie, but they're fine, they just go on to the next one. Eventually, it comes time for the Celestials to break their way into Reality 7, and they do so quite explosively, bringing with them a burst of energy and light into Null's eternal void, which he is not happy about. However, in classic irresponsible Celestial fashion, these cosmic masterminds don't really care that Null is pissed at them. In fact, they might not even notice. See, one of the first things that has to happen when the Celestials enter a new reality is that they appoint a new King in Black. And Null, I mean, he's clearly already versed in Living Abyss since he's a god of darkness, and he's, you know, there, so they just kind of throw the role at him. Now, many other cosmic entities might simply accept the role, right? After all, King in Black is a pretty good job to get. You get a gigantic power boost from the Living Abyss, and also you get to have a tremendous amount of influence over the preservation of your reality, since you are one of the 3 primordial forces keeping it going. But Null is very spiteful, and the Celestials just said let there be light and ruined his nap. So he accepts the job, receives the Living Abyss boost, and then immediately turns on them. Now, like what, 10 to 15 minutes into this video, I haven't recorded the intro yet, so I don't know exactly what timestamp we're at, we finally get to the first symbiote, and one of the most metal moments in everything we're going to be discussing today. At this point, the only things in all of existence are the Celestials, the light that they are emitting, and Null. This means that Null is the only thing casting a shadow. And with the power of his unbridled rage and the Living Abyss, he forges his own shadow, the first shadow in all existence, into a blade, and with one strike of that blade, decapitates a Celestial. This is amazing, and it's one hell of a start to Null's reign of terror, but unfortunately for the God of Darkness, there's a lot more than one Celestial there, and even though he is strong enough to kill one of them, he is nowhere near powerful enough to defeat all of the others at once, and so they cast him out into the void of space. Importantly, they don't kill him because he is the King in Black now, but they do just sort of throw him far enough away that he won't be a problem for a while. With Null's darkness colonized, basically, the Celestials begin their work and start developing the universe. But Null, at the far fringes of space, is not content to just sit there. He wants to cast these invaders out. He is going to fight their light away and reclaim his infinite darkness, and he now has a weapon to do that. Now, just a second ago, I said that we finally reached the first symbiote of the story, and let me be very clear on who I mean by that. Null is not actually a symbiote. This is a common misconception, but he is a god and creator of the symbiotes. Think of their dynamic kind of like a necromancer and their army of skeletons. They might share some characteristics, but they are not the same thing. The symbiote, then, is Null's weapon. This is All Black the Necro Sword, and it is one of the most feared blades in the entire universe. Though I should probably note that All Black is not a symbiote in the traditional sense. We'll get to the creation of those shortly, but in these early comics, they do refer to All Black as a proto-symbiote, so it's like the earliest generations of them and something that Null would experiment on going forward. After slaying that celestial with All Black, Null sought out the cosmic being's decapitated head, and using the energies found in that skull as a forge, began to refine his blade even further. This is where Null starts to get creative with the living abyss at his disposal. When I say that he uses the celestial head as a forge, that's not a metaphor. With the cosmic heat found there, he takes the tools of a blacksmith and quite literally forges darkness itself into the shapes that he needs it. First, he improves All Black, increasing its power and giving it sentience. Yes, the sword is an independent entity. From there, he makes armor and then decides to get bigger, creating an entire planet-like structure purely out of darkness to serve as his base of operations. He would then leave the head for his new planet, but if you're wondering what happened to the giant celestial head floating in space, well, a lot of you have probably seen a giant celestial head floating in space before, especially in Guardians of the Galaxy media. That's right, this decapitated head is what would later become Nowhere. Null did not specifically have a hand in it becoming Nowhere, I mean, other than the hand that cut the head off, I guess, but he had expended all of the cosmic light before it became a space station and did not attend to it from there. He had other things to do. His goal in all this is nothing more than a spite-filled crusade. Null wants to kill all the Celestials and purge every last drop of light and life from reality, returning existence to his void, and this is the only thing that motivates him. The problem is that Null is one singular being. Even though he is a very powerful one, the Celestials have already proven that collectively they can defeat him with ease. So, if he wants to have any shot, Null is going to need an army, and so he turns
When Sin attacked Xanarkand that day, I woke up in Spira. I kept hoping it would work in reverse, too.
I will defeat Sin. I must defeat Sin.
I was just fooling myself. Maybe it was that day, on the sea, under the burning sun. I started to give up hope. I was in a foreign world. I wasn't going home. This was my new reality, and I was stuck in it for good.
Made it Kilka.
Greetings. I am the summoner Yuna. I have come from the temple in Besaid.
Oh, milady summoner!
If there is no other summon...
Thanks, BTA.
Our loved ones. We feared they would become fiends.
Please.
We'll go see what we can do to help in town.
Huh?
20 hours. Did 10 times the amount of hours I actually played this game. Alright. Well, that's gonna be it for me, guys.